Folks, you ever stop and think how a simple, 3-minute tune could make an entire nation of grown-ups shake in their boots? Not a bomb, not a war, but a drumbeat, a swivel of the hips, a whispered lyric deemed a sin. Welcome back. I'm your resident memory keeper. Today, we're not just listening to music. We're firing up the time machine and setting the dial for the 1950s, an era of picture-perfect smiles on the surface and a whole lot of anxiety bubbling just beneath. It was a time when an instrumental could get banned for inciting violence, and a sweet little ballad about falling asleep at the drive-in was treated like a confession of moral decay. So come with me. Let's wind back the clock and unearth the 13 banned sonic artifacts that cracked the foundation of America. Number 13, Breathless, Jerry Lee Lewis, 1958. We'll start with a strange one, a case where the song was innocent, but the man singing it was guilty in the court of public opinion. Breathless is pure, high-octane rockabilly, classic Jerry Lee. The lyrics about a heart-pounding love are harmless. But the secret here isn't in the grooves, it's in the timing. This record was released right as one of the biggest scandals in music history exploded, Lewis's marriage to his 13-year-old cousin. That bombshell turned the killer from a chart topper into a pariah overnight. Radio stations, buckling under public pressure, quietly blacklisted him. Breathless became a casualty of circumstance, a sonic artifact banned not for what it said, but for who sang it. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the artist's life is the most controversial thing of all. From a personal scandal, we move to a primal sound that defined the king in his earliest days. Number 12, Money Honey, Elvis Presley, 1956. Before he was a global icon, Elvis was a kid from Tupelo with a voice soaked in the Southern blues and R&B he grew up on. Money Honey, a cover of the Drifters tune, is a prime example. This wasn't the polished Hollywood Elvis. This was raw, edgy, and a little dangerous. The secret of this song wasn't its story about a man looking for a rich woman, but in Elvis's delivery, a confident, sensual swagger that bordered on a taunt. To the white parental establishment of 1956, that sound was too black, too earthly. It wasn't just a song, it was a cultural invasion. Tucked away on his debut album, Money Honey was part of the total package that sent the moral guardians into a panic. The controversy wasn't just about one song, but the whole Elvis phenomenon, and this was one of the opening shots. But where Elvis hinted, our next artist told a story that was straight-up criminal. Number 11, Stagger Lee, Lloyd Price, 1958. Stagger Lee wasn't fiction. It was a resurrected folk ballad based on a real-life murder in St. Louis back in 1895. Lloyd Price's version, with its powerhouse brass section and infectious rhythm, turned a dark tale of a cold-blooded killing into a #1 hit. And that, right there, was the problem. Censors were horrified that a song graphically detailing Billy Lyons getting shot dead over a Stetson hat was being sung by teenagers across the nation. ABC and Dick Clark's American Bandstand actually forced Price to record a sanitized version where the two characters argue and then make up. But it's the original, with its unblinking brutality, that's etched in our memory. It's a cultural seismograph, showing the fracture between polite society and the gritty reality of American violence. Outright violence was a red line. But sometimes, it's what was left unsaid that was even more terrifying to the establishment. Number 10, Shake, Rattle, and Roll, Big Joe Turner, 1954. This is a tale of two records, a story about the racial divide in 50s music. The original by R&B titan Big Joe Turner is a masterpiece of sly, sexual innuendo. Lines like, I'm like a one-eyed cat peeping in a seafood store were unmistakable codes for carnal desire. For mainstream white radio, it was just too hot to handle. Then came Bill Haley and his Comets. They effectively whitewashed the song, scrubbing it clean of all the suggestive lyrics and replacing them with safe, peppy lines. Haley's version became a massive hit, while Turner's raw masterpiece remained largely within the black community. The controversy of Shake, Rattle, and Roll wasn't just about sex. It was about who was allowed to sing about it, and to whom. From adult innuendo, we move to the accused innocence of teenage love. Number 9, One Night. Elvis Presley, 1957.
One night with you.
Elvis originally wanted to record Smiley Lewis's blues hit, One Night of Sin, a slow-burning plea of raw desire. But his label, RCA, hit the brakes hard. The phrase One Night of Sin was deemed far too provocative for Elvis's increasingly mainstream image. They forced a lyrical change to the much tamer. One night with you is what I'm now praying for.
One night with you.
Even in its sanitized form, Elvis's version still drips with an unmistakable yearning, an undercurrent of repressed passion. The controversy surrounding One Night reveals the battle raging within the music industry itself. How to market the primal appeal of rock and roll without offending the gatekeepers of the nation's morality. But even the purest innocence could be twisted into guilt, as a sweet-sounding duo would soon discover.
One night.
Number 8, Wake Up Little Susie, The Everly Brothers, 1957.
Wake up, hey Susie, wake up.
This might be the most innocent song ever to be banned. Wake Up Little Susie tells the simple story of a young couple who fall asleep at the movies and now have to face the social fallout, what their parents and friends will think. There is zero mention of sex. Their only crime was nodding off. And yet, for the censors in Boston and other cities, the mere implication was enough. The song was banned because it suggested the possibility of improper behavior. It tapped into a deep-seated fear among parents about the growing independence of their children and the breakdown of traditional values. Don and Phil Everly, with their pristine harmonies, had accidentally penned an anthem for an entire generation of adult anxiety. If innocence could be outlawed, what about open rebellion? Chuck Berry had the answer.
Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie.
Number 7, Roll Over Beethoven. Chuck Berry, 1956.
Roll over Beethoven.
This one wasn't banned widely, but it was a profoundly controversial act of rebellion. Chuck Berry wasn't just playing a song. He was issuing a cultural declaration of war. With the command to roll over Beethoven and tell Tchaikovsky the news, Berry was explicitly stating that a new artistic order had arrived. Rock and roll wasn't just another genre. It was the successor. To the cultural elite, this was blasphemy. It was seen as an assault by uncultured, juvenile noise on the hallowed halls of high art. Berry, rock's first great poet, managed to capture the entire generational conflict in one immortal chorus. This song was the voice of a youth generation confidently saying, "Our time is now." Chuck Berry used lyrics as his weapon, but our next artist needed only his guitar to cause a full-blown panic. Number 6, Rumble, Link Wray and his Wray Men, 1958. Picture this. A piece of music with not a single lyric gets banned from the radio for fear it would incite gang violence. That is the singular legacy of Rumble. Link Wray created a sound no one had ever heard before by punching holes in his amplifier's speakers with a pencil, creating a raw, fuzzed-out, menacing guitar tone. That sound, paired with the slow, prowling rhythm, conjured images of a back alley brawl. title, Rumble, sealed its fate. Radio stations across the U.S., from New York to Boston, refused to play it. It was a watershed moment, acknowledging that the power of sound alone, not words, could be seen as a threat to social order. As Pete Townsend of The Who once said, "If it hadn't been for Link Wray and Rumble, I would have never picked up a guitar." Number 5. Great Balls of Fire, Jerry Lee Lewis, 1957.
Goodness and gracious, great balls of fire. I like that look upon I thought it was funny.
If Whole Lotta Shakin was an earthquake, Great Balls of Fire was a volcanic eruption. Jerry Lee Lewis took the chaos to a whole new level. The title itself, a common Southern expression, was considered blasphemous by many religious groups, evoking hellfire and damnation. Combined with the frenzied, demonic performance of Lewis, a man nicknamed the Killer, the song became the very definition of the devil's music. The legendary producer Sam Phillips famously captured an argument in the studio where Lewis wrestled with his religious conscience over recording the song. In the end, the performer won out. Great Balls of Fire is the sound of a man on the razor's edge between salvation and damnation, and that tension is precisely what made it so dangerous and so irresistible. Let's pause here for a moment. These tunes aren't just music, they're time machines. Which song on this list transports you back to a specific memory? Share your story in the comments below. I'd sure love to read it.
Goodness and gracious, great balls of fire.
Number 4. Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On, Jerry Lee Lewis, 1957.
Come on over, baby. Whole lot of shaking going on.
Before Elvis's hips, there was Jerry Lee Lewis and his piano. This song wasn't just a recording. It was a full-blown performance of explosive energy captured on wax. When Lewis hollered, "Come on over, baby, whole lotta shakin' going on," it wasn't an invitation, it was a command. His performance on The Steve Allen Show, where he kicked over his piano bench and played like a man possessed, sent shockwaves through the nation.
Oh, shake, baby, shake, shake.
Critics called it degenerate, and radio stations initially refused to touch it. It was too loud, too sexual, too out of control. Whole Lotta Shakin' broke every rule of polite performance. It was the primal sound of liberation, a direct challenge to the stiff-collared conformity of the 50s, and it paved the way for rock's wildest performers. Jerry Lee Lewis pushed the envelope of sexuality, but another man had practically written the book on it. Number 3. Tutti Frutti, Little Richard, 1955. A wop bop a loo bop a lop bam boom. That opening cry wasn't just a lyric. It was the sound of a new world being born. But the real secret of Tutti Frutti lies in what we didn't hear. Little Richard's original lyrics were so bawdy and explicitly about gay sex that the producer had to hire a songwriter, Dorothy LaBostrie, to clean them up during a lunch break. Even with the sanitized lyrics, Little Richard's energy, a fusion of gospel fervor, R&B fire, and something utterly otherworldly, was too potent to contain. With his makeup, pompadour, and electrifying stage presence, he defied conventions of gender, race, and decency. Tutti Frutti was a cultural bombshell, a declaration that the wild and the different not only existed but could be a smash hit. Little Richard's energy shook the world. But one performance turned that shaking into a national moral crisis. Number 2. Hound Dog, Elvis Presley, 1956. The song itself wasn't the issue. Big Mama Thornton had already recorded a gritty, powerful blues version. The controversy around Elvis's Hound Dog boiled down to one thing, and one thing only: his hips. His performance on the Milton Berle Show, where he delivered a slow, grinding version of the song, punctuated by his now infamous gyrations, caused a tidal wave of national outrage. The The press dubbed him Elvis the Pelvis and condemned him as vulgar. When he later appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, the cameramen were infamously instructed to film him only from the waist up. Elvis had turned his body into an instrument of rebellion. Hound Dog became the symbol of rock and roll's danger, its power to unleash desires that polite society was trying desperately to keep locked away. It stopped being a song and became a referendum on the morality of American youth. But before Elvis became a national threat, before Little Richard let out his primal scream, before Jerry Lee Lewis set his piano on fire, there was one song. A song that flopped at first, only to become the starting pistol for a revolution. Number 1. Rock Around the Clock, Bill Haley and His Comets, 1955.
12 o'clock rock, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Push that right song.
This is it, the genesis. The grand irony is that when Rock Around the Clock was first released in 1954, it was a dud, just another B-side. It wasn't until a year later, when it was chosen as the opening theme for the film Blackboard Jungle, a gritty movie about juvenile delinquency in an inner-city school, that the song found its destiny. The fusion of Haley's frantic sound with the images of rebellion on screen was explosive. Teenagers danced in the aisles and ripped up seats in movie theaters. Authorities around the world panicked. The song was banned in some U.S. cities and reportedly refused airplay by the BBC for fear it would incite antisocial behavior. Rock Around the Clock transcended music. It became the first true anthem of a generation, the first tangible proof that rock and roll wasn't just entertainment. It was a world-changing cultural force. These weren't just band songs, folks. They were the first cracks in the wall of 1950s conformity. They were whispers of sex, rebellion, and change in an age that demanded quiet obedience. They proved that a song could be more powerful than a newspaper editorial or a sermon from a pulpit. So my last question for you is this. What song is missing from this list that you believe was just as rebellious for its time? Thank you for taking this trip down memory lane with me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep unearthing these forgotten stories from the annals of music history. Until next time, keep on listening.